Thank you everyone for joining us today for our webinar on Black fatherhood. We'll be starting shortly, giving people time to come in and to join us in a couple of minutes. So please hold on tight. Again, thank you, everyone. We're just waiting for everyone to join us, and then we'll start shortly.
Your number one job is to pick them up and change their perspective. My saddest day, one day, my daddy looked at me and said, "Boy, you too big. I can't pick you up anymore." But when he couldn't pick me up physically, he would pick me up emotionally. He would pick me up spiritually. I had a great dad because he would always pick me up. He would always change my perspective.
Well, hello, everyone. I would like to thank you for joining us today here for our Georgia Parent Power webinar. My name is Reynaldo Green. I'm the Vice President of Nutrition and Family Wellbeing here at Quality Care for Children. As always, every quarter we throw a new webinar together, and this month we will be featuring Black fatherhood and other men that interact in the lives of our youngest children. Italy, can we get that slide up? Okay, thank you. Next slide. So I would like to say that today's Georgia Parent Power webinar topic is Uplifting Fatherhood, the impact of male involvement in children birth to 5. It is brought to us today by Carter's. For the past 10 years, Carter's has been very instrumental in the Quality Care for Children mission to help us with a variety of things out in our communities. So we are always grateful for our continued partnership with Carter's. Also, thank you for joining us today. And just as a reminder, if you are a parent seeking childcare or an after-school program, you can always call our 877-ALL-GA-KIDS referral line. That's 877-255-4254. You may also search for childcare online at qualityrated.org. We have referral specialists Monday through Friday that will be able to assist you with finding childcare anywhere in the state of Georgia. Now, if you are watching this later on YouTube, we want you to go ahead and like the video, press that subscribe button so you can always find out about new videos that are coming from Quality Care for Children. And also to please click on that notification bell so that you never miss a Georgia Parent Power session offered by Quality Care for Children. As you know, the mission of Quality Care for Children is to create a system that equips families and childcare providers with knowledge and resources to nurture and educate Georgia's infants and young children. Did you know that father and male caregiver involvement leads to better health, emotional, academic, social, and behavioral outcomes for children? Black fathers were most likely to have bathed, dressed, diapered, or helped their children use the toilet every day, compared with white and Hispanic fathers, according to the CDC's National Center for Health Statistics. The Pew Research Center has found similar evidence that Black dads don't differ from white dads in any significant way, and that there isn't the expected disparity found in so many other reports. Black fatherhood plays a vital role in the lives of children from birth to age 5, fostering their overall well-being and development. Black dads excel in their fatherhood journey, demonstrating remarkable qualities and positively shape their children's lives. Through their presence, love, and active involvement, Black fathers provide a stable and nurturing environment that promotes emotional security and a sense of belonging. They actively engage in their children's daily lives, embracing their responsibilities as caregivers, role models, and mentors. Black dads prioritize education and instill strong values, empowering their children with the tools needed to thrive academically, socially, and emotionally. Their unwavering support and dedication contribute to the holistic growth and success of their children, leaving an indelible imprint on the lives that extends far beyond their early years. And at this time, I would like to introduce our panelists. First up, we have Tarion Minifield. He currently serves as the Transitional Employment Program Supervisor at Compass Youth Collaborative. He is deeply committed to connecting with high-risk youth in the city of Hartford, Connecticut, coaching them to a better life. He recently published a book titled Daddy Can I?, which makes his fatherhood journey come to life. Tarion has a degree in early childhood education and is a staunch advocate for early learning. He is a father of 3 girls. Welcome. Our next panelist is Lawrence Wilbon. Lawrence serves as the Director for Business and Program Development for Fathers Incorporated. With over 24 years of nonprofit experience, he is tasked in assisting the organization with funds, development, and strategic partnerships. He and his wife, Dr. Matisa Wilbon, have 2 children and reside in Metro Atlanta. Next up is Devin Corbin. He is the Director of Innovation and Entrepreneurship at the United Negro College Fund, where he empowers Black creators with community and opportunity to address social inequities through entrepreneurship. With Devin, when Devin is not working, he may also be found at the grill or spending time with his wife, Lauren, and 3-year-old son. And last, we have Brandon Frame. He is a visionary leader, social innovator, and educator who has made a profound impact across the world. As the founder and chief visionary officer of the Black Man Can Incorporated, an award-winning nonprofit, he has elevated the narratives of Black men and boys, reaching over 10,000 individuals worldwide. His mentor network, comprising over 500 Black men, and the socially conscious online community with over 1 million followers, stand as testaments to his vision. Brandon currently resides in Bronx, New York. I thank you all for joining us today to share your insights on Black fatherhood and why it matters for children ages birth to 5. So thank you all for being here today with us. But first, before we begin, I would like the audience to have a good sense of who you are. So we have 4 categories and only one of you can answer each of these. So once someone grabs it first, you got to pick another one. So I'm going to start with Tarion. Pick a category. And I have a question for that category.
Let's go with girl dad, since I have 3 beautiful girls.
Okay, how appropriate. So you must be the expert here. So can you tell us one of your favorite girl dad moments or any revelation you've had with work, being father of three young girls?
So first and foremost, I haven't been through the boyfriend phase yet. So that's something that I'm not looking forward to. My oldest is 14, so she's into boys or whatever the case scenario, but I don't know if we quite sure ready for that. But one of my best stories with my daughters is actually just the trips that we take. I'll get a little more into it as I explain what my book is actually about, because my book is actually about me and my three daughters and an everyday schedule of how we get down for the day. So me being a girl dad is it's just overpowering, man. Like, you want to be their protector, you want to be their boyfriend, you want to be the uncle, father, grandfather, all mixed in one. And I'm their protector. I'm their protector. So I'm very much involved in their lives. I have two baby moms, but it's still a very good scenario to keep your girls close to you as a male and a Black father.
Well, thank you. I could probably say that almost every father is probably not ready for that conversation with their young girls about boys. So, but thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. I
Next,
appreciate it.
next we'll go to Devin.
All right, I
Pick
think
a category.
Favorite bedtime story.
Okay. What is your favorite book to read to your kid, nieces, or nephews, and why?
So there's this two books that come to mind right now. I'm gonna try to do a two for. One, of course, is a children's Bible story. I have probably like three different ones that I try to pull from. They're a little bit longer in paragraphs, so I got to try to keep his attention span. Lately, my son has been going through this, I don't want to call it terrible twos, but it's a trying twos is what I'll say. And he's coming up on three, but his emotions are all over the place right now. So I try to give him that Grumpy Monkey book. So that one stands out because it's like he goes through all these different things throughout the day. He doesn't know quite yet how to process some of those emotions. So by the end of the book, the monkey is happy, of course, and I try to let him know, like, hey, like, we love you, mommy and daddy loves you. And this is typically what we do before he says his prayers and go to bed. So those two stands out right now.
Okay. Next up, we'll go to Lawrence. Lawrence, pick a category.
TV dads.
TV dads.
Mhm.
All right.
I
Growing
think Brandon wanted that one, but I took it because I saw it in his eyes.
You saw it in his eyes. You gonna stick with it?
Yeah, I'm stick with it.
Okay. Growing up, who was your favorite TV dad and why?
It depends on a different, era there was, but I think for me, I was born at the end of the 70s, but I would say James Evans off Good Times was my favorite dad, because I think he had so much strength. He was redefining Black men in a parental role on TV. Even, regardless of, the challenges they had, the show was definitely called Good Times. So no matter how poor or how whatever we're going through, they were trying to find the silver lining in the situation. So James Evans was my TV dad.
Okay. And for our people who are joining us for our webinar today, in the chat, why don't you go ahead and just drop in the chat who your favorite TV dad is. We'd like to know what your answer to that would be. Okay, Brandon, you got only one choice.
Yeah. So I guess I'm got Black Boy Joy. And I was trying to think, 'cause I had a whole story for TV dads. So I was like, oh, I was already conjuring up in my brain But I'm gonna go Black Boy Joy, and it's gonna take me to. I have a tendency to when I watch movies, I look at them a little deeper than maybe you should. And so the movie that makes me think about Black Boy Joy is The Lion King, but specifically because of the topic of our conversation today, it makes me think about Simba when he was at the beginning of the movie, and he's singing that song, "I can't wait to be a king." Right. And so I think about that and what that represents for a lot of our boys, even at ages 1 through 5, like that's what they look like. They as they grow through those ages, that's where they are. But when you think about the movie, I'm not gonna get too deep with it, but like you think about the trauma that ensues and how you lose that over time, and how we have to always capture and hold on to that Black boy joy as we navigate life and as we navigate through traumas, and remember who we are and where we come from. The Lion King represents that. But when I thought about Black Boy Joy, I just think about that time with Simba, and I can't wait to be a king. And everybody here can think about a little black boy that they've seen at that place, or they can think about their own experiences when they were there, as that Black Boy Joy. And we need to carry that with us as we move through life.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing that. And thank you all of our panelists. I see that in our chat that we're seeing a lot of TV dads put in there. So thank you for sharing with us. So we'll get right into it. So we'll just talk a little bit about our format for today. First up, we're just gonna have a brief discussion about Black fatherhood. And so we're just gonna, I'm gonna ask questions to our panelists. And in our second segment, we're gonna bring up different scenario questions from you who have registered in advance. We've chosen some questions and we're gonna build them to our panelists to answer. And then we also have questions that we're gonna take from the live chat. So from the live, what we're going to do is, instead of putting your questions in the live chat, if you have any questions for our panelists, please put them in the Q&A section that you'll see on your screen. So don't put them in the chat. Please put your questions for our panelists in the live Q&A. And if we have time, we will get to those questions, some of those questions. And we'll just go ahead and get started. So I'm going to start with you, Brandon. You know that for over a decade, the Black Man Can Incorporated has been dedicated to amplifying the voices and positive images of Black men and boys. This year, the Black Man Can reached over 1 million followers on social media. What was your purpose for starting the organization? How has this platform impacted stereotypes and misconceptions surrounding Black manhood and fatherhood?
Thank you so much for that question. And so it started, I had the pleasure of attending Morehouse College. And so that is actually the genesis of the Black Man Can in terms of bringing young men from the east side of Atlanta to Morehouse. And afterwards, we did a debrief and the young men, I asked the young men about their experience at Morehouse, but one young man was the 5th grader, and he said the only other place he could think of that reminded him of Morehouse was prison. And when I asked him to elaborate, he said the only other place that he could think where there's 3,000 Black men at one time in one place was jail. And that was a catalyst for me to realize that, or a catalyst to MK Asante's quote, which is once you make an observation, you have an obligation. So I made an observation that Black men and boys need to see positive images of themselves, need to have their stories told. So therefore I had an obligation to create it. The Black Man Can started in 2010 as a blog, and over the last 13 years, it has grown into a nonprofit. And in terms of, I think what we've been able to do to provide the positive contradictions to the prevailing Black male image of today, we've been able to use the blog, use social media to highlight all the spaces and places that we walk in, to show all 3 hoods, brotherhood, fatherhood, and manhood, and what that looks like, and how all of us here on this panel and our fellow brothers across the world show up in so many places every day as fathers, as husbands, as pastors and lawyers and doctors and so on. And I think us eclipsing the 1 million follower mark is more that it represents that people want to see positive images of Black men, and want to see those stories being told on a really frequent basis.
Yes, thank you for sharing. If anyone hasn't been to the content that is on Instagram for the Black Man Can, I suggest you go and follow them on Instagram, because there's just so much content on there that's just really showing Black men in positive light. And I think for a lot of people who may have received the invitation to this webinar might think like, well, why do Black fathers in particular need to be uplifted or showcased? And I think that, you pretty much really, kind of stated like why we're even here today. Okay, thank you. Devin, you are the proud father of a 3-year-old son. You're a director at one of the nation's largest and most prominent organizations dedicated to serving Black students and institutions at the UNCF. So you're a really busy man. What advice do you have to give new Black fathers on managing work-life balance?
Thanks for that question, Ray. I would say the big thing you can do is try to include your child in the things that you're doing, that you enjoy, right? So I try to make a point to bring my son into everything that I do. He's very independent. Of course, I have a pandemic baby, so they're very independent. They had to learn to be independent. And for him, like if he sees me on the grill, Daddy, can I flip the chicken with you? Daddy, can I cook with you? Daddy, and then eventually it turned into Daddy, can I to let me do it, right? So my son Emmett is very independent, but I think that like for most new fathers, like you want to bring your child in so that way that they can feel comfortable knowing that Daddy enjoys this and that you can enjoy this as well. I'm not sure, I don't have I only have one child, so I don't know how if we ever have a daughter, I'm not sure how they're going to adapt to it, but it also gives them the opportunity to be creative, right? So I can give you a clear example. Last night I was painting my storage and I said, hey, here's the paintbrush, paint it. Daddy, let me do it. Okay, all right, cool. Here's the paintbrush. I'll get the roller. We're painting together. I'm not sure if that's going to come back to bite me in the behind later on, but we'll see. But he got an opportunity to use his creativity and to stand out and be himself. And I get to see that every single day. And the work-life balance thing is like, for me, like I know some people work remote, I work hybrid, right? So I know the days that I go into the office, I'm not getting home until late. So I may only have an hour and a half window when I get home to be able to spend with my son and my wife before he goes to bed. So I'm like, hey, let me maximize this time. Usually he's eating, usually he's watching TV. Hey, what's on TV? How was your day? I'm asking him all the same questions that I would ask my wife, because I'm like, hey, like I need to know what you're experiencing. So I think bringing them into what you already are doing, having conversations with them, even if they're young, to be able to get them to communicate with you, all is going to help you as a young black father. Ray, you're on mute. I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you for that. One thing that you did say, some keywords that you said there was a Daddy, can I, which kind of really is an appropriate transition to Tarion. Now, you recently published a book titled Daddy, Can I? To showcase your fatherhood journey.
Yes, sir.
What are some of the lessons that fathers can learn about being a father from your book?
For the most part, as you can see, is Devin, correct? Yes, so for the most part, you see Devin without even, knowing about my book. It's something that we go through on an everyday basis from the top of the morning to the end of the night. Daddy, can I? Daddy, can I? Daddy, can I? Daddy, can I? And our children are constantly, seeking to be better without even really knowing that they're learning from us. So like he said, they're watching everything that we do on a daily basis. So from the start of the morning, my girls wake up, they get ready for school, they brush their teeth, they get ready for breakfast. But then the first thing they'll ask is, Daddy, can we go to Dunkin' Donuts? Instead of just, making breakfast or eating breakfast here. It's just the constant need that they need to understand that they need to be more independent. Nowadays, the new age kids, they want everything bought. So I feel like now as, fathers, that we need to instill the things that, I'm an 80s baby. So my mother and my father instill hard work, get you what you need or what you want, starting from the small things of doing chores. I did the yard work. My sister, she did the dishes and stuff. You know, it was just small things to actually create some type of boundaries and structure for them later on in life. But my book, that's basically what it's all about. It's basically about, you know, starting our day in the morning and going through the day, going into the grocery store. We get in the grocery store. What's the first thing kids do? I want this. I want this. I want that. Daddy, can I have this? Daddy? And you constantly telling them no, no, no. You know, you have to get rewarded for certain things, you know, like every now and then it's okay to, you know, get them a little something, but at the end of the day, they need to earn it first.
Well, thank you for that. I do want to read an excerpt from your book, kind of putting you on the spot here. Somewhere in the story, it says, my favorite part of our mornings is putting my girls on the school bus. They always ask me, can I have a hug and a kiss? You can have these hugs and kisses forever and ever, as I hug them and kiss them all over. I just really like to see that in a children's book where, you know, we're seeing a Black father having those moments with their children. And so, you know, I want to encourage anyone that is out there to go ahead and get it. I think it's an awesome book.
I appreciate that.
Okay. Lawrence.
Yes,
Now,
sir.
we know that Fathers Incorporated is an award-winning nonprofit agency dedicated to advocating specifically for fathers across the country. Can you talk about some of social and legislative challenges that Black fathers are facing and how your agency helps to support them?
Absolutely. So thanks for that question. And I'll be remiss to just shout out the other men that are on this panel with me. It's an honor to serve on this panel with all of you. And so wanted to make sure I lift that up before I went into my piece. But you're right. So Fathers Incorporated has been around for 20 years now, and we're in the business of empowering, equipping, and educating dads to be the best dads that they can be. And so a couple of things that emerge out of that question for me of some social and some legislative concerns that are going on across the landscape. You know, of course, we're still dealing with the issue of child support and Black fathers being impacted by the issues around child support and what I consider some of the inequities around those issues. And then how the policies are put in place, where there's some punitive pieces for, you know, individuals who are not current and in arrears, which causes further separation of relationship between child, family, what have you, or child, dad, and what have you. Another piece that was a huge piece that we're pushing around some of the work here in the state of Georgia is around legitimation. Of course, there's a legal process that's out there that, again, historically, I think was put in place for one sector of folks, but it is impacting a lot of Black and Brown fathers, even on a greater scale. And so, so I think we have our work to do as an organization and as a society to help deal with some of these challenges, because if we're all about strengthening families, making sure that kids have dads in their lives and actively in their lives, we have to look at these policies and these things that are further separating and keeping that barrier from that happening. So those are my quick remarks, but I could talk all day about these subjects.
Right. I was gonna follow up and just ask you real quick, are you able to explain the issue in Georgia that makes it unique from most other states?
Absolutely. So with the legitimation piece, it's a legal process that in the state of Georgia, if the dad and mom were not married at the time the child was born, there is a legal process that the dad has to undergo to legitimize their child in order to have legal rights to anything that their child's involved with, whether it be medical rights, whether it be academic rights. They have to go and have this child legitimized. What's interesting is that there still could be a child support order placed on dad. You can still sign the birth certificate saying that this is your child, but unless you go through the legal process in the state of Georgia and you weren't married to mom at the time the child was born, you still have to go through the process. And so there are a lot of folks out there that don't know anything about this, and they think everything is good until there's something at school and you want to help make a decision on the status of the child. And after investigation, they find out, oh, you're not legally the child's father. Then that's when dads are starting to find out if a child gets sick or if there is need for insurance, trying to include the child on your health insurance and things like that. Originally, the policy was in place to protect property back in the day when there might have been illegitimate children born. And so it was a way to put this policy, this legislation in place. But I think in 2023, we need to find a way to eradicate it because all it does is continue to do is separate families. And so it's a stake that in the ground that Fathers Incorporated place. We do legitimation workshops. We do work with attorneys to help dads. And so, it's something that we've taken on as a badge of honor for us to do that work.
Okay. Thank you for that. I think a lot of our viewers don't even know a lot of that. I think, unfortunately, you find out the hard way when that issue comes up in live. So I suggest a lot of you can go to your website so that they can go ahead and learn more about that. And certainly it's a good resource for fathers who need that information. Brandon, I'm gonna come back to you. Can you talk about the importance of social emotional learning for children birth to 5? What might this look like for Black fathers and their children? How can it relate to a child's self-esteem and development?
Yeah, absolutely. I think first, just to start this response, I think we have to have a consensus of what social emotional learning is. I think when you ask people, they have different responses. But when we talk about social emotional learning, we're talking about skills. We're saying that when you have empathy and compassion, when you have self-awareness, social management, these are skills. And it's important in terms of this conversation is because when we identify and come to a consensus that they are skills, that means that they can be taught. And that's why it's so important in 0 to 5 is that we can teach these skills and also provide the language. Thinking about 0 to 5, we have the dads here, so everybody can relate to 2-year-olds, right? And 2-year-olds are really interesting, right? Because 2-year-olds know what they want to do. But what is the challenge is they don't have language. And so because they don't have language just yet, that's where the whole term terrible twos comes from. And so we work really hard to talk to them, to provide them the language. And so as we're developing the skills, that's important so that they can also develop the language to be able to communicate and talk about their feelings and their emotions, to talk about what's wrong or what they want to do. And it's important to develop that 0 through 5, because those are the skills that are also going to carry them through life, and they get built upon, as you move through after 0 to 5. And so we can all think about, we're all sitting here right now. Like, yes, we probably got some guys here who were some valedictorians, and maybe we got some guys here who just did what they had to do to pass the class. But why are we all sitting here? It's because we have strong social emotional skills, right? But we all didn't really go to a school that explicitly taught us that, right? And then it's not always that it happens at home either in terms of the explicit instruction. And so for 0 to 5, it's really important that we focus at explicit and intentional instruction on social emotional skill development to anchor our children and communities to move forward. And then that also help build their self-esteem, because it allows for them to have the self-awareness, but also the language to accompany it to be able to communicate. And we also know how important that is for our boys, because we all like even as men, we have friends that we know, like, yeah, this brother, he really struggles with that communication and being able to really have awareness of his external supports and so much, right? And that's because there was the lack of explicit and intentional um, instruction throughout that K through 12 time. And so that's why it's really important, because we know what the type of men that we want to create when you're 25 and 35, but that starts 0 through 5.
Thank you for that. Now I'm going to jump, and then we're going to go into the college years. So, Devin, how can Black fathers start preparing their children for college at a young age?
So this this is a trick question for me, I'll say, Ray. So I'll put it out there. So I work for UNCF. So there's 102, historically Black colleges and universities. I would love for my son to follow in my footsteps and go to one of them, specifically Claflin University, but I ain't gonna say it too loud. I would love for him to go there, right? But I have to be candid and say, college is going to look a lot different when it's time for him to go than when I had to go, right? We see things right now in the world right now with just education in general. The price of college is going up, right? The one thing I can say is to prepare them at home, right? Use whatever tools and resources you have. For me, I have lots of friends. My wife's a lawyer, right? I have friends that are in every practice you can think of: law, psychology, doctors, education. Those are just his resources he has right now at his disposal, where he doesn't have to go to a physical institution. And I'm going to use those resources to have him go in whatever direction he wants to go into. As a HBCU grad, Ivy League grad, I think both of these institutions are valid, but I still think it starts at home. I think that we're living in a world now where skills are going to be the driving force of the workforce in the future, right? So I want him to take on everything he wants to take on, but then I'm going to be open and, I'm leading a center for entrepreneurship and innovation. He may not take that path to go to college like I did. He may find another path in entrepreneurship that he wants to follow. And like his grandfather, like his grandmother, and so many people before him, that might be his journey. So I think when it says like, hey, how do you prepare them at a young age for college? I don't want to prepare them just for college. I want to prepare them for life, right? And I can use my resources. I can tap into those resources. I can do whatever I have to. Granted, if I'm still at UNCF, he'll get a bunch of scholarships. Even if I'm not here, he'll still get a bunch of scholarship opportunities. But the reality of it is if he chooses to go and do something else with his time, that's up to him. I didn't name him Junior for a reason, because I want him to chart his own path, right? So I think that that's the main thing that I want to instill in my child. And I got to put this little plug out there. When I was studying at UPenn, he was right here on my lap, right? So he already got a college education before he can even get an elementary school one. So I want to say, like, it is, all jokes aside, I think that I want him to be open to the opportunity, right? And if it does look like it's, skills are outdoing degrees at some point, I want him to be on that forefront and saying, hey, this is what I'm doing now. So that's how I'll answer that question, Ray. I hope that gave a little insight.
No, that's very, thank you for sharing that. In my past experience of like mentoring young Black boys, they're all now young Black men. Although our goal is always to, as mentors, is to kind of guide them and steer them towards college, that for, many of them, college was not the immediate thing to do right after college. And there were other avenues that were important for them. And I think that at the end of the day, what was important was to help develop a young person that had leadership skills, that knew what they wanted to do, and that you can leave them out in the world. And at the end of the day, to be just an authentic, good person that contributes back to their community. Thank you for sharing that. Now, you said Claflin, right, earlier?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So, Lawrence, I'm going back to you. you and your wife met at Ohio State, in which Ohio State and Claflin are no Morehouse College. I just want to let you both know that, they're not as, well, anyways, we won't get into that. But the two of you have been married for 22 years. You share two beautiful children as well. As a veteran dad, what are three values that you think are most important to instill in Black children at a young age?
So I love the fact that you shout out Morehouse. So I'm glad you did that. And The Ohio State University was a really great institution. I just want to make sure I lifted that. And then the fact that I'm a veteran dad really sends me to a different place. So that feels good as well. Because I hear some people call me OG, and now it's really making sense. But I think three things that I would kind of instill was, I think Brandon talked about the social emotional wellness piece, and being in tap to that. That was one of the things that that was one thing I had to learn as a dad, because I was not raised that way. A lot of times we raise our children based on our own personal experiences. And so I'm learning that, and I'm glad to see there's a lot of younger dads coming behind me that's able to pick that piece up already. And so their kids are learning to express themselves at a totally different level than my kids did. So I think that's one thing. I think the communication, my children are not, well, they're close to dating, but we started the conversations about dating and all that kind of stuff when they were 4, 5. We started early because I wanted my daughter to see me as her first boyfriend. We modeled behavior in front of our daughter. Our kids have never heard my wife and I have an argument that could, look at it and be seen something totally different. So the communication style is something that we push for. And the third thing I think I would just say is just have fun, right? Raising children can be difficult. Raising Black children can be even harder, especially in a society where, I always tell when I teach seminars or think about the fact that Trayvon Martin could wear a hoodie, and he had a hoodie, and other people can wear hoodies, but their lives are spared. Some of those same things are still happening. And so raising children can be difficult. Raising Black boys can be hard. So let's just have fun while we're doing it. Let's try to bring and experience. I think we've seen Black boy joy. We talk about, was it Black girl magic? Let's allow all that stuff to happen, because we fight against so many other different things. And so I would say social emotional wellness, the communication piece, and then let's just have fun while we're doing it.
Okay. Ariane, can you describe your experiences being an educator and father figure to students at the American School for the Deaf during your time as a teacher's assistant?
So number one, I worked there 4 years. I started off, I didn't know any sign language. So that was a big barrier right there, because how are you going to communicate to these deaf children if you don't know sign language? Well, I actually found out the hard way, and a lot of them didn't actually listen to me, or I should say, because they couldn't communicate with me. But what they did love and understand is I look like them. And that actually opened up the doors, because they were like, man, he might not know what we're signing right now, but he looks like me and I can relate to him. He kind of looks like my uncle. He looks like my father. So that right there actually, broke down the door, and they actually taught me the majority of the sign language I know, the actual students. So they were teaching me, and at the same time, I was building them up because they were like, why are you making it seem like I'm doing something so well? I was like, because you're not understanding. You're helping me learn this sign to communicate with you guys to open up more doors for me in American School for the Deaf, because I actually ended up coaching a varsity basketball team as well. And I wouldn't have been able to do any of that if these guys weren't helping me. But these are the quote unquote, bad kids who have behaviors, who are, opening up the doors and letting me understand that it's more to it than just, restraining or getting them in trouble consequences. They have something called ABC, which stands for antecedent behavior and consequence. And that was one of the things that I kind of veered from, because I can see when one of the children would be agitated or upset about something. And I was like, sometimes you need to give these kids their space, instead of being on top of them all the time. So I gave them like 7 little short rules. Like the number 1 rule was like, let it go. Never ruin a good day thinking about something that was bad yesterday. Number 2, ignore them. Don't listen to the other things that people live or that doesn't empower you. Number 3, give it time. Time heals everything. Number 4, don't compare. The only person you should be is the person you were yesterday. Number 5, stay calm. It's okay not to have everything figured out. Know that time will get you there. Number 6, it's on you. Only you are in charge of your happiness. And number 7, smile. Life is short. Enjoy it while you have it.
Wow, thank you for sharing that with us. It seems like you probably had a very great impact on the children for your 4 years there.
Definitely.
Well, before we move on to our next segment, I do want to just throw a particular question out to our panelists to see what they think. Recently, if there was the British Vogue cover. They had the artist Rihanna on the cover of it with her spouse, A$AP Rocky, and their young child. Do any of our panelists, any of you familiar with it? Okay, so on Black Twitter, there was a huge debate that erupted on Rocky's position on the cover, where you have Rihanna that's holding his hand. She is in front, and followed behind her is A$AP Rocky holding their young child. Now, going back to the CDC report, Black men tend to excel in roles that have been traditionally associated with women. That's like the bathing of kids, dressing them, and changing their diapers. Now, for our panelists, what would you have to say to the Black manosphere out there that would say that interacting with your children this way isn't a man's role? And I'll let anyone answer first. Devin, go ahead.
I'll say that's complete BS. Like you have to do it. Sorry, using my language, excuse my French, but yeah, diaper changes, potty training, all of that, washing your children, all of that is a part of your duty as a parent. So get to it. That's all I can say.
Yeah, we do have like this, there are these talking points out there about the effeminization of Black men. And, again, a lot of people took issue with that. I was just wondering if any of our other panelists would have anything else to share on those particular daddy duties.
I mean, so I first I want to just say that I am the person here who's not a father yet. But I'm still going to touch on this topic. One, there's two types. Sometimes there's like these people in the world, right? People who you know them by one name, or you say their full name. So like Rihanna, Beyonce, Madonna, Cher. Then there's people like scholars, their full name. People like that, they're just large, sometimes larger than life. And so that's one aspect of the cover. Like it's it's Rihanna. You know, like I think that there's a whole thing there. Like the stories about Rihanna. So why wouldn't she be and then the fact that he's there, like that's showing partnership. Additionally, I think that I look forward to I look forward to the whole process, the pre-birthing process to the birthing to after. Like I'm excited about having that opportunity to put cocoa butter on my wife's belly one day. I'm looking for the pre-birthing. I'm looking forward to being in the room. I'm looking forward to afterwards being there for her postpartum that she's going to go through, because it's almost inevitable. I know the many I can speak to that being a part of that journey, right? And so I
No,
think,
Brandon, you don't want to go through that journey of postpartum. I'm sorry, bro.
but I mean, but that's like, again, that's to the role, right? And then additional, right? I want to change diapers. I want to do all those things, and I think it's important to embrace that. And it's one, and I'm just bringing that because I've watched my friends do it. And then also just thinking about how we have to embrace that. Some of what you mentioned in terms of that's not what men typically do. Like that sounds like very like, I don't know, 1945-ish maybe, you know, like we're in 2023. It's about partnership. It's about me being a self-sufficient man, identifying a self-sufficient woman, and us coming together to build our union, our dynasty, our family. And we do that, you know, in cohesion. That means that we have this very similar roles, while there are some things that might be unique to me or unique to her, because of who we are as human beings, but we are in partnership together.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Brandon and Devin. We're going to go ahead and move on to our next segment. So in this segment, we're going to field some questions that we received from our participants in advance. So we'll go ahead and ask the panel these questions. So first, with a high Black maternal mortality rate, how can future fathers support their partners through the fears and anxiety of pregnancy challenges? Wow, which is a nice segue from what Brandon was just talking about.
I just want to add here, because before I go, like I said, I'm done. This is I'm somebody who thinks about this, because I would like to embark upon this journey. And so one thing I just want to share that I've learned, and I'm just sharing it for the fathers, is a lot of times this is a very true fact, and like that's actually a fear that like you can go into the hospital, you and your wife, and then come back with just by yourself. Like that's a real thing that is happening in hospitals across the country, because they see Black women as their skin and just being Black women is stronger. So one thing I learned is like when your wife or your baby, the mother of your child says something's hurting, something's wrong, and like the doctor kind of like, you know, just plays it off, you always say, write that down, right? Like write down that you did not take, because and then you see the doctor switch up, because he knows that you know, right? He knows that you're aware, that you're paying attention. And so helping to navigate, I think, through fears and anxieties, to learn all the different aspects of the things that Black women are going through when they're going through the birthing process, and be able to identify and see that and know the look for, so that you can mention things, so that you can protect her and protect your child as they come into the world.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to Brandon's point. You know, the numbers don't lie, right? It's 69.9 pregnancies out of 100,000, pretty much. That's the mortality rate right now. I shout out to my wife, Lauren. She got me in there to do all the things, right? So when we found out we were expecting my son pretty much New Year's Day, 2020. And you can just imagine, you know, the turmoil that happened literally a month later, added anxiety from the pandemic. I was able to go to one ultrasound appointment, and then the rest of the ultrasounds, the rest of the hospital appointments, I was in the parking lot waiting for my wife to come out. And it adds to the anxiety. But what you can do is be as supportive as possible. You can have the conversations on the ride home, have the conversations daily. Some things that I did was that I supported my wife finding a doula, looking at midwives, seeing the difference between doulas and midwives, right? And then finding the right doctor. Shout out to Dr. Allen. at GBMC here in Maryland. Like, she was a Black doctor who said, hey, I've already had 2 children of my own. I'm able to support. I understand your pain levels, your concerns, your anxiety, all of it. I'm going to walk you and support you through that. So it's just different things you can do. As fearful it is, guys, I don't want to put it out there, but you can watch the mommy and me classes, all of that different stuff. I hated, having to sit in those classes, but it helps you because in that delivery room, you don't know what's going to happen. My wife would hate me to say this, but I remember her kicking this beanbag pillow clear across the room, right? And I'm sitting there like, when I got back to the room, for some reason, my phone service wasn't working, so I couldn't even call the doula that we had, the virtual doula we had. So I had to sit in that room and I just helped her through the whole process because I was able to relate to what the video was saying. I knew all of these different stations and all that different stuff. I felt like I was a doula in the room, but it helps to understand because in that moment when they're going through, labor, they may not even be thinking about all of this different stuff. But if you have the knowledge when you go into that room, you're able to talk to the nurses when they come in and check. Say, hey, this is not comfortable for her. Can we do this? So all of those different things I think is key. And then, it's so many different things, natural birth, C-sections. There's so much stuff you can learn, but it's like literally like your wife, you might go in with a birthing plan and that plan may change at the drop of a dime and you got to adjust. So if you know all of the information, you're able to do that.
So I'm sorry, but just to piggyback off Devon and Brandon, to go back to what I was saying, Brandon, you don't want to go through the postpartum. I was just joking, but that is one of the most trying times because I've actually been through this. So 2 of my babies actually passed away at the hospital with my wife. She's high risk with carrying babies. So our third, she's my miracle baby, and she's here. But that's a very trying time, because she actually had to have the actual baby in the hospital. So that was something that we actually had to get through, which was hard, and we actually had to actually go to some classes and to be in there with it was majority women. There weren't too many fathers there. I had to be maybe one of 3 fathers that was in the room full of women who lost babies, and the room probably was 10, 15 people in it. So that is something very trying that builds your relationship with your partner, I should say, and it should make you stronger. But everything is not for everybody, and some are weak-minded, so they may not be able to get through it with their wife.
Well, Tarion, thank you for sharing that. And I'm glad that your wife is doing well now. And for both you and Devin, I'm glad that you guys were both there for your spouses at that time. So those are very good examples. I'm glad you were able to share that with our audience. We'll move on to the next question. What is your perspective on why television shows, movies, and non-Black owned news media often portray Black fathers in an unflattering light?
I mean that's a historical thing, right? Like we can go through media all the way back to just when it was just print and there was no TV and how that, and you go back to blackface, like there's a history of what it means to showcase negative images of Black people, specifically as Black men, and the different characters that they are given. And so it's important, and I think that's like why the Black men can exist. That's why Revolt exists in different outlets, and even BET to an extent, right? So that we can tell our own stories, because we know the historical nature of what it means to portray Black and brown people throughout history. And so we also just gonna have to continue to be our own storytellers as well. And I know every single organization here, I've seen commercials, I've been to events, I think from we got authors. And so we have to continue to fight that good fight and put out these positive images. I mean, just think about today, right? And you had the Supreme Court overturn affirmative action, right? And it was an Asian American who brought forth this to the world, and he's looking at as like Black people are the ones taking his spot, right? But that's tied to this negative portrayal of Black and brown people. And so we have to really do even more as much as we can to show the positive light and show the remarkable contributions that we make to society and to culture.
Oh, yes, I have a lot of thoughts on that case that I won't dovetail in today. But I will ask you, Brandon, so what do you think about the media attention that was on Nick Cannon for the past I say year?
I mean, it's one, he's a celebrity. I think that, I mean, there's some other men out there that's on Nick Cannon wave too. But they're just not celebrities. So you don't hear the stories. I mean, you can talk to people, especially when you get into different cultures and and what men do, and how many kids they have. So I think that, he's a celebrity. I think just listening to some of his narratives, it's not as it's not. I wouldn't say that that's the approach that one should take as a father to just populate the earth as much as possible. But I think again he's a celebrity, so he's going to get he's a really famous celebrity too. He's going to get a lot of attention for his actions.
Okay, thank you. I will move on to the next scenario. What tips can you share with fathers who don't live in the same home as their children, but want to be more active? What about fathers who co-parent?
Honestly, I feel like you have to be so involved in the extracurricular. The extracurricular activities that your children should do should take up the majority of their weeks. So if you're involved in the extracurricular activities, far as sports, maybe they play an instrument, but you bring them to these events, you go to the games, you do the extra things that you need to do to build communication between you and your child, without the opposite even knowing. Like, y'all taking that ride to soccer practice and y'all talking about how well, in my case, how my daughter's day was for the day. What did you eat today? Are you hungry now? You know what I'm saying? Those little things go a long way. Like, they think about those memories and those rides, and they tell you about it, mom or dad, you don't know how much that meant to me. And it's the small things. So if you're involved in, like I said, the extracurricular activities, I try to keep my daughters in everything. So my daughters are in cheerleading, they're in dance, they're in swimming, they play an instrument. They might not like it all the time, but I'm gonna give them options. I'm gonna give them options. So the more you're involved with them doing all these extracurricular activities, the success rate should be higher.
The only thing I would add to that is show up and show up big.
Yes, sir.
Always make sure your children know, even if there's issues between you and mom, show up big, right? Doesn't mean you outshine mom, but you show up and show up big. So wherever you can plug in, whenever you can plug in, I say you plug in.
100%.
All right, thank you for that. Okay, we'll move on to our next scenario. What are the positive impacts that spirituality has on young children?
Well, I think Devin kind of started that off a little earlier when he was talking about one of his favorite books that he reads with his son. But I would just say, just my 2 cents, I think the guidance, morality, almost the do's and don'ts, the self-awareness, that, when I'm thinking about spirituality, that's all a part of self-awareness, being introspective. You teach this at a very young age to your kids, because the thing is, when they get 15, you want them to be able to own up to when they did something wrong. and you don't have to like peel back the onions to get them to admit it. You know, you want them to already understand that there's the connection there, that you know, you should already take that responsibility. So I think spirituality gives guidance and it gives direction, but then helps with those things to help. I see somebody put prayer as a foundation, but you know, helps to give the young person, the child, those skills is needed to be those productive adults.
Okay. Does anyone else have anything to add?
Oh, I was just gonna say, a lot of the kids that I talk to now, they don't even believe in religion or spirituality or anything. You know, they're on some I wouldn't say they're 5%ers or whatever the case is near, but they believe that they're gods within their self and they control. Like, it's hard for me to really get into it. They have to explain it more, but you know, they feel like the moves that they make themselves impact what goes on in their life or what goes on for the next day. You know, they don't really think about tomorrow. They think about today. So whatever God like gets them through for the day, you know, if they're breathing in the morning, they get through for tomorrow. Like it's hard for me to really explain, but you know, a lot of the kids, like I was raised in the church as a Christian, and spirituality was big. My she's an ordained minister. My grandfather was a pastor, and you know, it was just embedded in me to, you know, love God, pray at night, you know what I'm saying? Never look down on others or whatever the case in there. And that could be a good reason why I'm such a people person and a positive person, a good spirit to be around. But you know, like I said, prayer works for me. It works for me, but to each his own.
Thank you. Black people, we've traditionally been very spiritual people, and in light of all the things that we've had to overcome over the years, that our spirituality is what has been like a center of strength for us. And so I believe that is something that we, need to continue to instill in our children to really, help them with resiliency and things that might be ahead of them. So thank you for that. For our next scenario, what are your thoughts on more grandfathers showing an active role in helping their children with the grandkids? Is there a trend?
I'll say, I don't know if there's a trend. I'll say that they have a different way of interacting with their grandkids than they did with their kids. But my father, it's funny because I never forget my first time my son said Papa. And I was at my grandmother's house visiting my grandmother, and my dad just happened to be walking up the driveway, and he was like, Papa, Papa. I'm like, Dad's across the bridge, and he was actually walking up the driveway. And he said, he walked in the door like, did he just say Papa? And I was like, yeah, he said Papa, right? So the smile on his face though, like the energy that he has, like I know grandpops, at least for my son, it was challenging the first year, right? It's challenging the first year for several reasons. One reason being that my mother passed away 3 weeks before my son was born. So it was up to my dad to really step up, right? And say, hey, like, this is what we wanted to do for your son, right? This is what we want to do for our grandson. So it was like it was put on him. So he had to step up, and he's not a real big talker, but when he's around my son, for some reason, it just the light just clicks on, and he's like, okay, yeah, I'm Pop today. What's going on? What do we want? What do you want? What do you want? And I'm like, oh, so this is how it is, huh? And the same thing with my father-in-law, right? Like he doesn't visit necessarily often, but when he does interact with my son, he's definitely present in his life. So I would say that piece does stand out. And I think that's where the magic happens, right? Because now as a father, now I understand some of the things that they had to go through when they were raising me and raising my siblings, right? So now we have even a better interaction now. So I think it's definitely a trend. I think it's going up, and I think that they find ways to do it their own way. But I will say that I visualize it as a slight difference between how they raised us and how they are interacting with their grandkids. That's what I'll say.
You know, I always say like the oldest kid is always the experimental child. And as each child that comes along and then we get down to the grandchildren, that the parent or now grandparents' experience of those children are a lot different. And they get to experience all those great things with their kids. I'm going back to even Brandon's website, you know, like on there are like these very touching videos of toddlers seeing their grandparents or grandfather visit. And it's something so magical when they're over there and they're saying things like pop, pop, and they're trying to make their steps towards them and saying how happy they are to see their loving grandparent, grandfather or mother there. So there's nothing like a grandparent's love. Okay, we'll go on to our next scenario. What suggestions do you have for a father when co-parenting becomes challenging and the relationship between the two parents is very tense?
Yeah. Okay.
Go,
Go ahead.
go ahead, go ahead.
I was going to say, you know, first thing that comes to my mind, and one of the things we share with dads is to walk into the situation with mutual respect, right? Let's keep the main thing, which is the child, and let's respect that if mom is the person that has, you know, primary custody, then let's respect that. Let's respect that there's challenges that mom are dealing with on a day-to-day basis. Let's respect that mom is carrying, you know, a large share of the weight when parenting. And so with that, you can go into the situation and let's kind of work this thing out, but let's keep the main thing, which is the health of that child. So
I saw this question, and so what I did is I actually went to I have a few friends, and so I reached out to them and like, hey, what would you say for this one? Because I thought it was a great question, and I wanted to bring a perspective of men who are going through that. So they gave me a few things I just wanted to share. They said, one, communication is key. So you maintain open and respectful communication with the other parent. Two, they said seek professional help if needed. If the tension and challenges persist, consider seeking the assistance of a mediator, a therapist, or a counselor who specializes in co-parenting. Put the child's needs first, remembering that your child's well-being should be the primary focus. Create a detailed parenting plan. Establish a comprehensive parenting plan that outlines responsibilities, visitation schedules, and decision-making processes. Maintain a positive attitude, even if the relationship between you and the other parent is strained. Strive to maintain a positive and respectful attitude. Focus on co-parenting, not personal issues. Keep the discussions and interactions centered around co-parenting matters. Seek support from your network. And lastly, take care of yourself. Co-parenting challenges can be mentally and emotionally draining. Remembering to prioritize your self-care as and your well-being directly impacts your ability to be a supportive and involved parent. So I just want to share that because I talked with some guys and that's what they told me.
Thank you. And thank your guys. Tarion, you had something to add?
Yeah, I just was gonna say, you know, same thing as Brandon, seek therapy. You know, it's easy for everybody to sit here and say, yo, it's about the kids. It's about the kids. But when that opposite is disrespecting you and you're disrespecting them, y'all really don't like everything else goes out the way. So, you know, my biggest thing would be, you know, to try to seek some type of therapy for all three of y'all, you know, or however many children you have, like for the actual, you know, if you have a relationship, you have a wife and she has a significant other, everybody should be there, you know, like a family thing where where we all sit down and try to get to the root of what's the actual issue, you know. It's a tough scenario because, like Brandon said, a couple of my friends are actually going to it as well, and some had to even go to the court system, you know, and actually, you know, get the, you know, custody, you know, a custody battle where, you know, she gets 50 and he gets 50, or she gets him on the weekend, he gets him on the weekends. You know, sometimes you really have to go through the court system depending on how bad it gets.
Thank you all for sharing on that. I just want to let people know that we did a Georgia Parent Power webinar on co-parenting last year. So if you go to our YouTube page and, you know, for QCC Georgia, you will see our 1-hour webinar on co-parenting that we hope that could be helpful to any of you that are in a particular situation. And then if you know someone, you can pass it on to them. So thank you all for that. I think we have time for only one more question in this section. So we'll go on to our next scenario. How can more fathers get together in local communities for events?
Well, first and foremost, as men, we all need to put our egos to the side and be more receptive and open with one another. You know, this will provide fathers the space and opportunity to actually build relationships and bonds to actually want to be a part of these community events, as well as even plan them. You know, I'm personally a part of, you know, a brotherhood through sports, through football. You know, I'm in a chapter club called the Central Connecticut Faithful Nino Empire. And in this club is, you know, we have some of the best fathers in the state of Connecticut. You know, like we bring our children to these, you know, football games. You know, we plan, you know, toy drives, book bag drives. You know, we have little conversations with each other to build each other up. You know, and I also have a close friend who started his own therapy club. It's called Seek Therapy. His name is Maurice Eastwood. He you know, he opened my eyes up to therapy. Like everybody think therapy and think that you have to be mentally sick to go through therapy and stuff like that. But you know, as Black men, our egos goes a long way, and sometimes we have to, you know, calm down and just be open to what another might think. You might not always be on the same page. You could be on 2 different pages, but you got to figure out how to make it work.
Do any of you have any other suggestions for or suggestions or ideas of how fathers can get together?
I throw out there, I think, you know, one is like even some of the people that were just mentioned, because I'm from Hartford, so I know some of the people that were mentioned. And then I think hosting workshops or educational sessions. I know, you know, Fathers Incorporated does a lot of stuff like that, you know, organizing workshops on educational sessions specifically designed for fathers. You know, I think about, I know I something like that. For new fathers, for aspiring fathers, I think even that and creating that culture, because I think the big idea is just getting men together, because a lot of times we suffer in silence, we sit in silos, right? And so we really just need to come together and create those spaces, because when we get together, then we realize like, oh, I'm not on an island by myself. Like I'm just in this conversation. There was things that probably somebody said and it was like, yo, I'm dealing with that too. There's people listening like, oh, I'm challenged with that too. And it's a man listening to, or somebody heard you say something, heard one of us say something. It's like, you know, I know a brother that needs to connect to this brother. You know what I'm saying? They need to talk because they're going through really similar challenges. And so that's why I just making sure we ensure those spaces for Black men and Black boys, because when we get together, we realize we're not and we don't have to stay in silence. And that's sometimes the most powerful thing that we can do.
Yeah, thank you for that, Brandon. I think, yeah, it's simply about being able to talk to each other and being able to kind of start those conversations. And you'll just realize that so many fathers are, you know, experiencing the same things. And I think that they're many ways that we can, do that in our respective communities. Devin, did you have one more thing to add?
Yeah, I was gonna say, it also helps, to go to church and then reach out to your network as well. Like I had a friend of mine, he had his first child when he was in high school, and then he just recently had another child, just this last year. And he was, Devin, remind me of this, remind me of that. Like, and we just reached out and we got together, and then like now we have another friend who's actually having a baby as well. So it's like, it's just reaching out to your network sometimes for other fathers that may have recently gone through it, that may have, need updates on anything you could think of, right? From, what things should you be looking for in the what is it called, the baby shower, right? What items should you be putting on the list? What's some things that you had to learn? What's some things, diapers and all that different stuff? What's your brand that you buy? All that kind of stuff comes in just organic conversations. But some people are, they're little, they don't want to have that conversation. They may say, oh, my significant other has it handled, and it's not the case. So sometimes it helps to reach out to somebody in your same, recent experience, or a new father, or reach out to some of the older gentlemen at church and say, hey, like, I know your child might be 6, 7, might be 16, right? Like, what's some of the things you experienced when you were actually up, raising up your child? So all that helps.
Thank you for sharing. So we're going to go ahead and skip the last question that we have for this section, and just our Georgia Parent Power Team at QCC needs your feedback. We always need to hear back from those of you who participate in our webinars to kind of guide us on the next webinar. So if you look in the chat, you'll see that a SurveyMonkey link has been posted in there for you to go ahead and leave us feedback. Italy, can you put the next slide with the QR code? Okay, well, don't worry about it. If you registered for the event, you will also get, oh, there we go. There's a QR code, so we'll leave it up here for a second, but we really need to know, like, what would you like to see next in our next webinar? And again, tell us about things that we could have done better for this event. Maybe you would like to see a part 2 of this, or talk about a particular topic in Black fatherhood. So please go ahead and leave us your feedback. Next, we are going to quickly bring in Corey Grosset, who's been monitoring the Q&A section for questions that you have for our panelists. Corey Grosset is a new member of our team, is our community outreach engagement coordinator. And so go ahead, Corey. What do you got?
Good afternoon, everyone. I've really been enjoying this webinar. I appreciate all the panelists we have. And Ray, you've been doing a great job. So I'll get to the live chat, and we have a few questions in the live chat that I'll ask some of the panelists. Could you speak for a minute on Black fathers who just got out of prison and are overwhelmed by the obstacles that they are facing in rejoining society, on top of the pressure they have from their child's mother to be involved?
Did you all hear the question?
So I one of my closest friends did 17 and a half years, and he recently found out in jail that he had a 17 and a half year old son. So it's funny how it came about, but I put a picture of him up on social media, just saying that I visited him, and I got an inbox from a young lady, and she was saying, like, you might not believe me or whatever the case scenario, but I think that such and such is my child's father. And I thought that he passed away because I haven't seen him. And so what I would say is the first thing he did from jail he reached out to us and he made it his duty, you know, really our duty, but his duty as his brothers to take care of his son before he even got out of jail. So he started writing, you know, he was making the calls, he was doing all the necessary things that he needed to do. And it was actually hard for him because your son's 17 and a half now. So he like, man, this ain't my father, this, that, and the other. But that actually helped him writing the letters and stuff. So when he got out of jail, it was more of just showing his actual son that he wanted to be a part of his life. And they're actually doing very well right now. So the biggest thing would be just being there physically. Money is not always everything, man. It's not. You know, you could throw a couple dollars at your child all you want, but women, they really don't care about, certain women don't care about the money. They care about the actual time. So time is everything. So I would say just put that work and put that time in physically with your child once you get out of jail.
Okay, Corey,
Thank you.
you have another question for us?
Yeah, I have one more question. Could you, let's see. What are some of the ways Black fathers can promote self-care and well-being while managing the multiple responsibilities they have?
For this, what I just want to put out there, like a lot of times people say work-life balance. Now I stopped saying that. I don't give people a new concept to think about, and it's called work-life integration. Because you can't achieve work-life balance. That's it might just like it's something we should let go. Cause like if you're being the most amazing dad possible, that means you might not be giving your best at work. And if you're giving your best at work and you on top of the line, you're probably not being the best at, right? So let's just honor the fact that is the concept that we should be thinking about as men, as human beings, is work-life integration. And so what does that look like to create a symbiotic relationship between everything that's going on in a way that's healthy? And I think even just approaching like that is a case for your own well-being. But when you're trying to achieve balance with all the things, the competing priorities, something's going to give. But if you think about it as work-life integration, that is a concept that you can, all right, I can integrate all these things so that they work together in a way that is effective for my family, for myself, for my work, my dreams, and my passions.
And looking at the perspective, it takes the pressure off of you, right? If you look at it as an integrated, because I agree, I've never mastered work-life balance. I don't know how to do it. I've tried, it's stressful. But looking at it as a way to, as a integration, it takes some of the pressure off of you just to still be your best authentic self in every area that you're in.
Thank you. I know we don't have a lot for your questions today, but before Corey leaves, Corey, you are a father of a 4-year-old, and you worked in the early childhood field for several years. So I know that we have men that work in childcare. Tarion has his degree in early childhood education. Corey, I just wanted to know before you leave us, can you share some creative ways that fatherhood engagement is encouraged in a childcare setting?
We do, well, in the past, we did a lot of volunteer work in the classroom. We had the dads come read to the kids in the classroom. So that was one of the ways they would volunteer. We would have fatherhood barbecues, where I would get together with all the fathers and we would have barbecues. We would go bowling night, have bowling nights, top off. The different volunteer events we had, like maybe shop with a cop or trick for track. So those was different ways that we got the dads involved with the kids and, you know, be part of the center activities.
Okay. Well, yes, there are definitely different ways that if you are a child care provider that is happening to be viewing our webinar today, is that there, you can always talk to whomever you're working with to improve the quality of child care at your center, or you can just look online. There are different ways to engage fathers in your community for those that are in, for the children that are in care at your programs. Okay, thank you, Corey. We are at time, but I would really first like to start with thanking our panelists. First, Devin Corbin, your information is there with UNCF. I really appreciate you. Is there anything else that you would like to share, one little last nugget or anything with our audience today?
Yeah, I just want to thank you guys for having me. I just really appreciate it. If you want to connect with me, Devin Corbin, same spelling, it'd be probably the same picture on LinkedIn. So feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. And if there's anything that I said today that you guys want more information on, feel free to email me at UNCF or just send me a message on LinkedIn. So thank you all once again for having me.
Hey. Next, okay, Brandon Frame. Of course, we mentioned the Black Man Can a couple of times on here. And I'm not gonna, I'm not blowing him up just because he's a fellow graduate of Morehouse College. But Brandon, is there anything else that you would like to share with our audience?
I think some words that I live by is everybody just goes forth and does the work. I know that everybody here is in the space of doing community work and preparing communities to be the best that they can be. So be different, be great, never stop. Be so reminded of Martin and Malcolm, yet so inspired to sketch your own path. And one of the quotes that I live by again is M.K. Asante, once you make an observation, you have an obligation. Thank you for allowing me to be here. It was an honor and a privilege, and look forward to continued partnership.
Thank you. Okay, Tarion Minifield. I believe that's the website where we can, where people can get your book. This book.
It is. You know, you could pick up my book there. And I just want to say thank you for having me as a panelist. And I just want to leave with a little quote by Maya Angelou. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel.
Thank you for that. And last but not least, Mr. Lawrence Wilbon, your information's there. Also the website for a very comprehensive Fathers Incorporated website.
Absolutely. So again, thanks for allowing me to serve on the panel with these wonderful, amazing other brothers here. And thanks to the attendees. Thank you for spending your lunchtime or whatever it is with us today. And I would just leave by saying, let's continue to keep grinding. Let's kind of deconstruct some of the silos and then some of the policies that are out there that are preventing Black men from being the great fathers that they can be. So thanks again for allowing me to be here.
You're welcome. I would like to say is this is a fantastic way, the month of June, we had Juneteenth, we had Father's Day. I believe this is Men's Mental Health Month. So I believe that this particular webinar incorporates a lot of those things here. A couple things before we allow everyone to go. We just, again, we respect and honor your feedback. So if you want to leave us feedback, please hit up the survey link. You'll also receive it in an email that will follow this webinar. And we would also like, again, to thank our sponsor at Carter's. We greatly appreciate their commitment to help nurture and protect children and to build communities in which children can thrive. Also, if you are, next slide, one more. If you are looking for any referrals for childcare, you can always call us at 877-ALL-GA-KIDS. That's 877-255-4254. Or if you want to receive texts from us so you can find out when the next webinar is coming, text CARE to 255-4254. And also, this webinar will be available shortly on YouTube at our YouTube page. And QCC is a nonprofit organization. Next slide. If you would like to contribute and help us continue to provide great programs like this webinar to help every child reach their full potential, please visit us at qccdonate.org. Your contribution is appreciated. Again, thank you, gentlemen, for pouring into us today. It's really appreciated, and I look forward to doing this again with you. Thank you.
Appreciate you. Thank you.